Chapter 8. What did I tell you? Beautiful, right? Kelly asked as she led me up the shore. It was something, all right, I replied with a slight chuckle. But somehow, it feels like beautiful doesn't quite do whatever that was justice. I can't put my finger on it, but it needs more. You know, you might be onto something there, she responded with a burst of excitement before retreating into deep thought. It might take me a while to think of a word that fits it right, but until then, can we at least admit that it was much better than your rabbit? Well, we definitely don't have that in the city, I can tell you that much. Any of this, I exclaimed, with my arms lifted so the whole Loch could hear me. Apparently, my declaration resembled the calls of a hungry predator because it nearly scared the life out of a chipmunk that was perched nearby. What is that? I asked with intense focus. What, you don't have chipmunks in the city either? She teased as it ran off. Not that. That, I barked as I pointed to what the chipmunk had been sitting on. I don't know how I missed it, but resting feet away from the entrance to the loch, buried in overgrowth, was what remained of an abandoned rowboat. With its color a parasitic, mossy green, and its hull of weathered wood, broken and missing in places, it was almost begging to be rescued. It took a moment for Kelly to catch what I was asking about. It had obviously been there for some time, and it would have been reasonable for her to forget it was even there. But by the way she explained the story behind it, showed she hadn't forgotten at all. Oh, that's my granddad's rowboat. He and my mother built it together when she was young. He used to take us for rides and picnics on the loch regularly. Nan pleaded for Mother to take care of it after he died, to keep the tradition alive. But I guess she saw fit to leave it to the elements. The disappointment in her voice prompted me to get a closer look at the boat to see exactly what we were dealing with. I trampled down some of the overgrowth and knelt down beside, careful not to put too much weight on its already fragile structure. It sure is in rough shape, I thought aloud, while looking over it. But I think we can fix it, you and I. If Miss Gilleigh approves, that is. I don't see why she wouldn't. It's worth a shot, she said supportively. Help me move it, I directed assertively. It wasn't that it was heavy in its condition, but the years of plant life holding it in place made it sturdy and didn't want to let it go. And there she is, in all her faded glory, Kelly commented once we drug it onto the lawn. Next came a description of a simple framework for a plan while she was getting redressed. So, you'll get your bag and change in the bathroom. I'll handle talking to Nan, and we'll be in the village getting the supplies we need before you can say picnic. Picnic, right. I didn't even get a chance to think of the word before we hit a hiccup in the plan. See, the idea that I was going to sneak around unseen and change clothes while Kelly expertly ran interference with Gilleigh was just too boring for our own good. To keep the thrill alive, Gilleigh caught us a few steps from the bathroom, holding what was either the morning's cup of tea that she was sipping to savor, or her millionth cup for the day, and asking questions about the job we didn't finish. My worst nightmare. There you are, dearies, she said cheerfully, while lowering her cup from her lips. How was your dip in the loch? The water must have felt lovely, especially as a reward for hard work. After sharing a concerned look with Kelly, she spoke up. About that, Nan, we didn't finish the garden. City boy here got distracted by the great outdoors, so I thought we'd take a break and look around a little. Rather than with discipline, her admittance of guilt was met with laughter. If we can't fault him for being curious, then maybe we can fault him for being a better swimmer than he is a weeder. Kelly asked in fake laughter, while giving me a hearty shove toward the bathroom, intending for me to use the joking to slip away. Have you ever tried to change out of wet clothes in a hurry? All I'll say about it is the level of which I had to contort myself to get out of them was almost inhuman. Not to mention there may have been a minute there where I thought I would either be left behind for taking so long, or have the door opened, with my shirt stuck over my head and my shorts around my knees. I can't count the number of times I almost knocked myself out, putting on my socks and shoes. But it did put my ear close enough to the door to hear some muffled bullet points from the conversation outside. "Oh, what a lovely idea," proceeded. "If I ruin the interior of my car, Mother will kill me." Which was followed by the sound of distancing footsteps, and then silence. I wanted to go and see what I was missing out on, but when I got my feet in my shoes, I nearly tied my fingers in knots. When I finally opened the door, Kelly was already standing there, dangling a set of car keys in front of me. "Our chariot awaits, good sir," she said, in a privileged impression. The keys, I would learn, belonged to whatever was being kept in that shed in the corner of the backyard. The wait for Kelly to pull the tarp off and unveil what it was protecting was excruciating. It had to be pretty special to be here, instead of, say, in the driveway, and when the cover was peeled back to show a mint condition forest green 1939 Ford pickup beneath it, "Wow," was all that squeaked out. That's how my granddad sounded every time he came back here. He was sure proud of this thing. Sometimes he wouldn't even drive it. He'd just uncover it and stand there looking exactly like you, Kelly explained, seeing the size of my eyes. I can still remember choking on the dust and the musty smell when I opened the door to get in. "Have you ever driven this before?" I asked in a cough. "Nope," she answered while turning the key, "but I've always wanted to." Being in the passenger seat, you can see how this answer didn't fill me with the utmost confidence in the situation. And that was before I saw the look of rebellion on her face as she put the truck in drive and pushed the pedal to the floor. Over the sound of the back tires kicking up rocks as it gripped the road, you could hear a maniacal giggle, and me trying to find something to hang on to. We took off like a green rocket, with nothing but dust propelling us toward the bridge that led to the village marketplace. The closer we came to it, though, the more apparent it became that Kelly had no intention of making the turn. There goes our stop," I pointed out as it whipped past my window. "Oh, come on. We just freed this thing. The least we can do is let it stretch its legs a little," she responded, implying a dare. You know what they say, if you can't beat 'em, drive with 'em. Let's see what she's got," I said, accepting her challenge, and maybe even raising the stakes. Cue the hillbilly banjo car chase music, because we were flying around corners, over bumps, and through straightaways. I know neither of us were thinking that there was anything that could catch us, or anyone who could stop us at the time. Of course, there was the pair of horse-drawn buggies on both shoulders of the road that were coming straight at us. They lightened Kelly's lead foot by a few pounds. The brakes, as it turns out, worked as well as the gas, having a skid to a stop that ended in a jarring thunk. Depending how you look at it, it happened at the perfect time. I mean, the horses seemed pretty happy to not have been spooked by our engine, which was now idling as they passed, but their drivers were not pleased to inhale our cloud of dust that had not yet settled. Oh boy, were they angry. We were too chicken to make eye contact, and when they scowled at us, we tried to pretend they weren't there. Narrowly escaping confrontation, we thought it wise to be quiet until they were well on their way. We worked on catching our breath and letting the adrenaline of the situation die before I broke the tension with 2 little words. My turn. Don't get too excited. My time behind the wheel was spent getting to know the truck, appreciating it. I still took it for a joyride, yes, but I wasn't trying to rattle the bumpers off the thing. I got our objective back on track and stopped us in front of the general store in the marketplace, Gilleigh-approved general merchandise. This is where Kelly expressed her disappointment at not sharing her need for speed and getting pulled over, or worse. You drive slower than my Nan, she teased, getting out of the truck. And so that's where you get it. I smiled back. You're darn right. Where else do you think I learned to own the road like a true lady? She asked confidently as I opened the door for her and followed her in. Back in those days, the words general merchandise actually meant anything you can think of we sell here. So you were never shocked to go into these places and see every square inch covered in shelving to display the smattering of goods that could satisfy every desire a person could have. Sometimes the goods would be so abundant that it would be difficult to spot the clerk behind the counter. I used to wonder if they ever had nightmares of their shelves giving way and being buried beneath all that stuff. Anyway, Gilleigh-approved was just like that. The counter, which was surrounded by inventory, faced the door, so the fellow that ran it could see and greet the customers as they entered. Well, well, do my eyes deceive me, or has trouble graced us with her presence once again? The clerk said as the doorbell chimed. How you doing, Kelly? Finer than a frog hair split 4 ways, she fired back. How's business? Slow, but I bet that's why Pa left us in charge of things while he's away, he answered. So does that mean you have time to come out from there and give me a hug? Kelly asked with a sweet smile. Oh, I'm not sure about that, the clerk replied in sarcasm. I'd use all my free time getting to you. The two shared a laugh as he gingerly got up from his stool and placed crutches on his arms. The way he used them and swung his hips was more mechanical than natural. I could see it was laboring for him. He was a scrawny guy on the short side, even wearing his braces that kept his legs straight. I don't think he reached over 5'5". I hate to make fun of the disabled, but he was even shorter than Kelly when he finally made it, and just sort of fell into her arms. You guys wouldn't be here to answer the sign we have out front, would you? He asked before yelling. You know, since good help is hard to find, into the other room. A higher-pitched voice called out in response. Hey, I'm working here. You're working all right, working on my last nerve, he barked back. Quit playing Jackson Pollock and get out here. We got company. I'm afraid not. This is only a supply run, Kelly said with a giggle when she finally got to speak. That's too bad, the clerk said with visible disappointment, before perking up again. Hey, your ma was in here the other day buying some paint. Is she doing up her house? My nan's, actually, she answered, seeming elated with the question. I'm the lucky guy she hired to do it, I added, unable to help butting into the conversation. Oh, so you're the fella from the city she was grumbling about while she was here. I do not envy you, my friend. He chuckled, as though he was impressed. My friends call me Polio Pete, which is kind of funny since it's not my name. Why do they call you that then? I asked, sincerely puzzled. Obviously finding the whole thing funny, his telling of the story was drenched in humor. I suppose it's 'cause it's easy to remember. It's got a little rhyme to it. Like it's hard to remember that I'm the kid with polio. How many Petes with polio do you know? How many Petes in general? You would be my first, I answered, trying not to laugh at his passion for the subject. Exactly my point, he continued. Here I am, looking like Robbie the Robot, and they still feel the need to point out the obvious. I mean, it's just as apparent as, hey, there goes Mickey One Leg, or Three-Fingered Larry, or, I don't know, Peepin' Joe. If you ask me, I think short-term memory loss is the real epidemic these days. Kelly busted out laughing at his antics before redirecting her eyes to a shape that had emerged from the other room. Hello, gorgeous. Hello, handsome, replied the 6-foot-plus, solidly built-looking guy that looked somewhere between a gentle teddy bear and like one good knock on the head could send you clear through to China. As he smothered her in a giant hug, the clerk continued his conversation with me. My real name is Duncan. That there is my baby brother Dell, if you can believe it. Lakin, nice to meet you, I said before changing the topic. Do his friends have a name for him too? Like Tiny or something? He chuckled at my joke. No, only I call him that. The only tiny thing about him is his head. He's just jealous 'cause his poor attitude stunted his growth, Dell chimed in. I ought to stunt you right in the nose, Duncan bit back. You wouldn't dare, I'm fragile, Dell exclaimed dramatically. Yeah, fragile like a baby hippopotamus, Duncan mumbled. How about I put your crutches across the room where you can't get them? Then we'll see who's fragile, Dell said, feeling clever. You wouldn't dare, Duncan challenged. I would so, his brother accepted. Boys, boys, boys. Kelly jumped in to mediate the argument. Can we get back to business? We have places to be. Business, right, Duncan echoed, as he returned to his stool behind the counter. What can I get you? We need a couple sheets of plywood, a handful of 2x4s, some nails, and I started. And paint. Some shade of green, if you have it, Kelly finished. More paint? Duncan asked, looking surprised. Different project, I assured. Ah, I see. Well, unless you want a cigar or some bazooka to go with that, everything you're looking for is in the back hardware section. Is in the hardware section in the back. I'm sure my lovely assistant there would love to escort you back there and help you find what you're looking for, Duncan directed. As my master commands, Dell said with a bow before adopting a diva-like demeanor when speaking to Kelly. Okay, if you follow me, we'll get you everything you need to send you on your way. Please keep in mind that we are going to be in close proximity to some very sharp tools. So be careful, honey. 'Cause nobody likes a girl who can't keep her head on her shoulders, am I right? Speaking of heads, oh my Lanta, I am in love with your hair. In moments, the flamboyant tour evolved into a peculiar-looking, yet effective, wagon train that went back and forth, fetching the supplies and bringing them to the truck. Once it all was loaded up and paid for, we left the brothers doing what they do best, bickering. The last thing we heard leaving the store was the thwomping of Duncan's crutch against Dell's knee, and ouch, hit me again, and I'll get blood all over you. I ain't scared. Those two are quite the pair, a regular Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I said, getting into the truck. Yeah, but they're good eggs, Kelly giggled from the passenger seat. They always knew how to keep life interesting when we were younger. Lots of adventures. And how many of them were misadventures? I asked jokingly. Maybe one or two, but you lose count after a while, she joked back. I enjoyed listening to her accounts of their impish days together on the drive back, but before I could picture Crocker and I joining their running circle to form a childhood gang, we were pulling into Gilleigh's backyard. Go ahead and park alongside the shed. We can put the supplies in there. Make a workshop out of it, she suggested. It took some effort to pack the stuff in the smaller space without it looking cluttered, but we managed, which was rewarded with Kelly threatening more work. I figured after dinner we could finish the flower garden. The sun should be setting by then. We could watch it. Aw, geez, dinner. I should really get going, I objected. You're not staying? She asked, with a note of surprised sadness in her voice. No, see, I'd love to, but Mom gets kind of mad when we don't eat together as a family on such short notice, I answered anxiously. Oh no, of course, I understand. Go on home. I'll let Nan know, she replied nonchalantly. That would be wonderful. You're a peach, I praised. Listen, I'm sorry to ditch you like this, but hey, tomorrow's a new day. Plenty of time to start working on the boat. I'll hold you to that, she called out forgivingly, as I turned to make a run for the bus stop. That's going to wrap yet another episode up for us, guys. Sort of a quick one, not really, but yeah, one chapter will do for this one. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed it, and come back for chapter 9. Until then, we'll see you next time.